My son slid a pen across the table and told me it was just a formality. 60 people were watching, cake still on their forks. My daughter-in-law had her phone out, ready to record the moment her father-in-law turned 70 and made everything easier for everybody. I looked at that pen for a long 3 count, then I set it down on the white tablecloth, next to the folder with the little embossed seal in the corner, and I didn't touch it again. The room didn't gasp. It just went quiet in that specific way a room goes quiet when 40 people realize at the same moment that something is wrong and none of them know exactly what. My name is Harold Vance. I'm 70 years old as of that Saturday, and my hands still shake a little from a stroke I had 4 years ago, which is a detail that matters more than you'd think. I want to tell you what was actually in that folder and why I already knew, and what it cost everyone at that table to find out I knew. Before I go further, if this story is doing something for you, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I read all of them. Now let me take you back to where this really started, because the pen on that tablecloth didn't come out of nowhere. Nothing like that ever does. I grew up outside Lansing, Michigan, the son of a machinist who kept his tools in better condition than his shoes. I learned the trade before I learned to shave properly, and by 26, I had my own small shop fixing industrial pumps for the auto plants, 3 bays, 1 apprentice, and a line of credit that scared my wife Dorothy more than it scared me. She married me anyway. She used to say she married the shop as much as she married me, and for 41 years that was mostly true in the best possible way. We built Vance Hydraulic Repair into something with 40 employees and a building we owned outright, the deed under my name, for 31 years before I finally sold the business at 65 and kept the building as a rental property. Dorothy passed 2 years after that sale. Quick, a heart that gave out on a Tuesday morning while she was watering the porch plants. I still water those plants myself now. It's a small thing. It matters to me. We had 2 children. My son Gregory, who went into finance and married a woman named Paige, who could sell ice to a penguin and make the penguin thank her for it. And my daughter Marissa, who lives in Arizona and mostly stays out of things, which I've come to understand is its own kind of choice. For a long time, that was enough for all of us. Then things started to shift, quietly, the way water finds a crack before you ever see it. It began small. After the stroke, Gregory started asking questions that sounded like concern. Did I remember to take my medication? Had I locked the back door? Paige would mention, gently, in front of company, that I'd repeated a story twice at Thanksgiving and wasn't that interesting, and we should keep an eye on things. I had repeated a story. Everyone repeats stories. But she said it the way you'd note a crack in a foundation, casual on the surface, deliberate underneath. Then came the doctor's appointments I hadn't scheduled. Gregory would call and say he'd taken the liberty of setting up a cognitive screening, just routine, just to be safe. And wouldn't it be easier if he came along and handled the paperwork? I went twice. Both times I passed whatever they were testing for cleanly. Both times Paige seemed disappointed in a way she never said out loud. Then came the meeting I wasn't fully told about. Gregory mentioned, almost in passing, that he'd had lunch with my attorney, Ellis Prater, to go over some estate questions, and had I signed anything lately, and did I know where my original paperwork was kept. I said I kept my own paperwork just fine, thank you. He smiled the way people smile when they've already decided something and are just waiting for you to catch up. The piece that actually told me everything came on a Wednesday afternoon in March. I'd arrived early to drop off a birthday gift for my granddaughter Nora and let myself in through the garage the way I always had. I heard Paige in the kitchen, voice low and certain, talking to Gregory. She was saying that, with Harold's episode last year, and the memory thing getting worse, it really wasn't safe for him to be making financial decisions alone anymore, and that a guardianship arrangement, even a limited one, would protect everybody, protect him most of all. Gregory's voice, quieter, said something about how it felt strange to do this behind his back. Paige said it wasn't behind his back. It was for his own good. And besides, if they waited for him to agree to it willingly, they'd be waiting until the building on 5th Street was sold out from under all of them, by some contractor, with a smooth pitch and a bad contract. I stood in that hallway for a long moment. Then I walked in, said hello, admired the birthday decorations, and left an hour later without saying a word about what I'd heard. That night, I called Ellis Prater myself. "Ellis," I said, "I want you to pull the durable power of attorney I signed 2 years ago, the one naming Marissa as agent, and I want a second independent capacity evaluation on file this month. Dated, notarized, no family present. And I want it done quietly." Ellis, who has known me since before Gregory was born, said he'd have it done by Friday. He did. So when the invitation to my own 70th birthday arrived, with a little too much detail about who would be giving toasts and when, and a line from Paige about how meaningful it would be to celebrate my legacy properly, I already knew what kind of party this was going to be. The dinner went exactly the way these things go: warm toasts, a slideshow of old photographs. Gregory stood up near the end, a little emotional, said some true things about how much he loved me, and then said that as a gift to himself, as much as to me, he'd had some paperwork drawn up, simple guardianship paperwork, just a formality, just to make sure I was protected as I got older, and wouldn't it mean a lot to the whole family if I signed it tonight, in front of everyone, as a symbol of trust. That's when he slid the folder across the table. That's when Paige lifted her phone. I opened the folder myself, instead of signing it. Petition for limited guardianship. My name, Gregory's name, as proposed guardian. A blank line at the bottom, with a small pencil mark, already showing me exactly where to sign. I set the pen down. "Dad," Gregory said, his voice pitched for the room, "it's just a formality." "It's a guardianship petition," I said. "That's not a formality. That's a legal transfer of my decision-making authority to you." The room had gone very quiet by then. Paige's smile had started to move at a slightly different speed than the rest of her face. "Dad," she said, "we just want what's best for you. After everything with your health." "My health is fine, Paige," I said. "I passed 2 cognitive evaluations your husband scheduled without asking me. Did you know I had a 3rd one done independently last week, dated and notarized, with a doctor none of us know, that confirms I'm fully competent to manage my own affairs?" Nobody at that table said anything. I could hear the ice melting in somebody's glass. "I also updated my power of attorney 2 years ago," I said, naming Marissa, not Gregory, as my agent should anything ever happen to me. "That document is already on file, with Ellis Prater. It's been valid for 2 years. This petition tonight would have had to fight against a document you didn't know existed, filed by an attorney who has represented this family for 40 years, and a capacity evaluation dated 1 week ago." Gregory's face changed the way weather changes, slow and then all at once. "You were going to let me sign this in front of everyone," I said, "and you were going to have Paige recording it, so that if I ever tried to say I didn't understand what I signed, there'd be video of me doing it willingly, smiling, at my own birthday party." I didn't raise my voice. I picked up my water glass instead of the pen, and I looked at each person at that table in turn, the way you'd check a room for exits. I looked longest at Nora, 7 years old, who had no idea what any of this meant, and was just eating her cake. "Grandpa," Nora said into the silence, "are you still going to blow out your candles?" I laughed. It came out of me before I could stop it, real and a little too loud for the room. "Absolutely, sweetheart," I said. "I'm not going anywhere." I didn't need to raise my voice after that. The silence had already done the work I would have had to do with words. Gregory called me 2 days later, and I let it go to voicemail the first time, the way he'd let plenty of my calls go unanswered over the years, without meaning any harm by it, probably. The second time I picked up. He didn't defend the folder. He said Paige had pushed hard for it, that he'd let his fear about my health get twisted into something he wasn't proud of, and that he was sorry, genuinely, in a voice that sounded like a man who'd been standing at the edge of something for a while and had finally stepped back from it. I told him I forgave the fear. I told him I didn't forgive the folder, Not yet. And that forgiveness for that part was going to take longer than a phone call. A week later, Marissa flew in from Arizona, something she almost never does, and we sat on the back porch while I watered Dorothy's plants, and she told me she'd had no idea I'd named her as my agent, and that she was scared of the responsibility, and I told her the only responsibility was to let me keep being myself for as long as I'm able, and to tell the truth to her brother if it ever came to that again. Nora calls me most Sundays now, just to talk, no occasion required. Last week she asked if she could learn to fix a bicycle pump the way I used to fix hydraulic ones, and I told her that was the best question anyone in this family had asked me in years. I don't know exactly where things stand with Gregory and Paige. I know Gregory and I are talking again, carefully, the way two men do when they're both a little ashamed and both trying anyway. I know Paige hasn't called. Here's what I've learned at 70, sitting in a house that's quieter than it used to be. People will tell you they're protecting you right up until the moment protecting you starts to look exactly like controlling you, and the only real difference between those two things is whether you still have a say. I didn't fight that night with anger. I fought it with paperwork I'd quietly put in place months before anybody handed me a pen, because I'd already heard, through a garage door, exactly what kind of party I was walking into. I built everything I have with these hands, one pump and one contract at a time, and I wasn't about to sign it away over cake. Now I want to hear from you. Has anyone in your own family ever tried to make a decision for you and called it help? Tell me what you did about it in the comments below and where you're watching from. If this one meant something to you, share it with somebody who needs to hear it today, and I'll see you in the next one.